Welcome back to the table. Today, Emily and I are going to be talking to you about the Spiel des Jahres winner, Dorfromantik. This game, if you're not familiar, it is based on a video game or a PC game. I played this, I don't know how many years ago now. And you never played it, right?
I did not. I was not familiar before we played this game. And then was told that I actually should be familiar because my partner has played it and I have seen him play it before.
For a little bit.
For a little bit, tiny bit.
And just to give you a short story, when I played this, obviously the first time anyone played this, if you're a board gamer, you'd be like, oh, well, they could do this on a table. Kind of. Because then there's a lot of things that the video game does that you'd be like, well, that would be hard because as you succeed in the game, you get more tiles added to you, your draw pile, which you couldn't really do terribly well, or at least in a random fashion in a tabletop game.
Some video game magic going on.
Yeah, exactly. There's some things that I thought, well, that would be a challenge. I'd be interested to see if anyone ever does make a game, how they handle that. Well,
they did.
They did, and they handled it really well.
Yes.
I have to say, I wasn't skeptical about whether or not this quote-unquote deserved to win the Spiel, but when it was nominated, I thought it was kind of a unique thing because I don't think, I could be wrong, correct me in the comments below, I don't think another game has been nominated, or certainly not one, that was based on another game IP.
Yeah,
which is
video
kind of
game specifically would be hard.
Unique situation. And the fact that, like, I don't know if you think, do you think that's like is that a bit of a cheat? Like, you know what I mean?
No, I don't. Honestly, I think it's almost harder in some ways, right? And like, again, this is an IP, but it's not so big of an IP that it's like, a well-known brand.
No.
Like, I'm like, oh, it's Disney.
It's not like a money grab.
No,
Because there's plenty of people who still like, what's Dorfromantik?
Exactly. And they even said that like the people who developed the video game helped with the title as well. So it's like it was more of a collaboration, which it feels like that coming to the table. It doesn't feel like it was like, oh, this is definitely a video game, and now they tried to shoehorn it into a board game.
No.
It feels very like if you hadn't told me it was based on a video game, I would just been like, oh, this is just a good game.
Yeah, good new tile laying game. Now the interesting thing is, from my perspective, I did play it. I played it quite a bit a while ago. So my memory of it wasn't so clear that I'm like, oh, this is exactly how they do it. Oh, this is not at all how they do it. So with that said, I can tell you my experience having just played this with Emily, and she'd learned it, so she taught it to me. I was playing it and feeling like this is vaguely just like playing the game.
Yep.
Now, there are some differences, and as we kind of explored those, and we'll do that right now for you, it becomes clear like, wow, they really made some good decisions about what to change, how to change it to make it work on the table.
Yeah, so if you know nothing about the game, this is a tile placement game, right? We're working cooperatively, so you can work with solo or up to 6 players at once, and we're taking tiles, just hexagonal tiles, and they have one of 5 different backgrounds on it. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to match up backgrounds, we're trying to build different city-like structures, but specifically, at any time we have 3 different tasks on the board.
Yeah.
And so they have a certain number of those types of tiles that they want connected to each other. And in this game, you want it to be exactly that. So if this is a 4 for the fields, I need to be able to have this in a place where there's exactly 4 fields in that connectedness. And once I do that, I get to take the 4 off the board, it's completed, and I'm going to score it at the end.
Now, this brings in one of the first differences that I actually had to remember, and that is, for instance, the towns here. In the towns, like in the game, you would look at that, and you wouldn't be counting up the number of tiles that were contributing to it. You'd be counting up, I believe, the number of houses that were in that. So it was a little extra level. And I think this actually streamlined that. And the same, I think,
for the forest,
for the forests and things like that, because there's numbers of trees and things like that. It streamlines it for the table in such a way that just makes it a better game.
Yeah.
Like, I think if they tried to do that other thing, the reason it works in a video game is because you're playing it by yourself in the video game, and I found myself just wanting to make an absolute monster of a forest. Well, there's plenty of tiles if you're good in the video game to do that because it's basically infinite. That's not the case here. So they had to whittle that down and pare it down. And honestly, I prefer this.
It's interesting because this is a bit more of a puzzle, right?
Yeah.
Because you get it and you're like, okay, this is not that difficult. The only constraints are that for rivers and for tracks, they have to match.
Yeah.
So they cannot, everything else you can kind of do willy-nilly, but the rivers and the tracks, they have to go to a river or a track wherever possible. They can't go to something else. So they're the things that are kind of, wrangling you in. But aside from that, you get into these spots where all of a sudden you're like, oh, we didn't realize we just connected these two railroads, but there's a river there. And now this spot is very difficult.
Yeah.
Because it has both a river and a railroad.
Just like in the video game, but also if you're just a board gamer, just like in many tile laying games, you're building your puzzle in front of you and you might realize, oh, this spot here is going to be damn near impossible because we need a very specific tile that has the railroad and the river. I'm not even sure if there is one like that, at least not one that fits these specific sides. And as you can see here, we had this railroad objective, and this railroad was a dead end. So we necessarily had to add a railroad here. So this objective was never going to happen for us.
Yeah, so I'll say, like, as you're playing, it can feel very chill, very zen-like, right? You're just taking turns, you're discussing where you want to put it. Ultimately, it's up to the person whose turn it is to decide where you'll get to place it. But a lot of the times you're feeling like, oh, I'm just building out a little here, building out a little there, until you get to those moments where it is really problem solving and you're trying to decide, oh, shoot, we've kind of locked ourselves into a corner here. Or like, oh, should I do this for the right now? Or should I set us up for possible success in the future if I can do it this way? And the way that we go through the tiles is that every time we finish a task, we get to take out another task tile. So necessarily, you'll be doing more in the game if you do it well.
Right.
And if you don't, you'll finish faster.
And that part of the game also feels, at least to my memory, far more satisfying than the original video game, because we just played and scored all of these points by completing all of those different objectives for different types of goals. I don't remember ever feeling like I was doing so much of that in the video game, at least not to that extent. Again, I didn't play the video game well. I got distracted and just tried to make the largest forest I possibly could and things like that. But this game definitely, like I said, makes some changes that makes it work as a board game. And one of the other big things, and probably I think one of the things that a lot of people think is the coolest, like we said in the video game, while you're playing, as you achieve some of those things, you would get like maybe five more tiles or this or that. That doesn't happen in this game in one session necessarily, but it happens as you play the game because there's a sheet that kind of connects the sessions like a campaign that you go through. And depending on how well you perform based on the points that you score on those tokens and some of the flag points that you can get by building the biggest section, you're able to score little points that you can use to fill out this map and work your way up and make even branching decisions about where you want to go.
Yep.
And that opens up various boxes at different stages. And there's another box, the 3 box, has a bunch of different little modules in it.
This thing is huge.
Yeah, that you can
It's heavier
open
than
up.
I thought it would be.
It's really cool because it expands the game just like the video game expands it, but it also kind of gives you that sense of getting more, building on that game, getting those tiles. And I think, like we said, in fact, we can look at this. Here's one of the objective tiles, and then here's one of the standard landscape tiles. There's fewer of these than there are these.
Much fewer, yeah.
This tile ultimately ends up feeling like those extra tiles that you're getting.
Yes, exactly.
Like you were saying, because you only have 3 of these out at one time, and once you clear one, you get another one. So if you don't ever clear one, you're just burning through your landscape tiles,
100%.
and once you're out of landscape tiles, that's the end of your game. So you definitely have to work and try to get as many of these as possible. I think we did pretty good for
We did great.
our first
And
game.
honestly, what this game does well too is it allows you for moments where you feel clever, right?
Yeah.
Because what you can also do is you can set yourself up for success later where like, I'm looking for 4 water, and then we get something that says, oh, it's looking for 5 water. Well, we can put this in the same thing together, and potentially both of those could like benefit off of each other. So you can have turns too where you're getting more than one of the task tiles complete at the same time.
Yeah.
You can have these moments where you really feel like, ooh, now we're doing it. Now we're really getting it. Now we're getting into the groove. We're getting more tiles out. And I like that it allows for that kind of thoughtful interaction at the table.
Yeah, well, thoughtful interaction, plus on the flip side of that, sometimes you get the fun of the luck of flipping over one of the new objective tiles and it being the
Exactly
4th water,
yeah.
and you have 3 water already, you place it down and it's complete.
There you go.
Like, that is also really fun. But just to let you know, and we don't want to ruin it because I do think some of the experience is going through this, these boxes contain unique tiles.
Yes.
New tokens. There's going to be things you can place that give you like maybe double points or extra points and stuff
Definitely
like that.
different ways to score throughout the game. So like on the score sheet itself for each one, you have this at the top for each of the task tiles, and then for the areas with flags, for your longest stream, for your longest tracks. Those are the basics. But then you have this huge section in the middle, which is all possible scoring, depending on what you unlock throughout the campaign. And just looking at it, you kind of start wondering, like, oh, what does that mean? Oh, I wonder what that thing is.
Right, and it's a clever design, too, because that, too, lets each new session feel like you're doing better.
Yeah.
Because it's literally giving you more opportunities to score points. So you're going to improve on your score with every next session. Typically, I think, generally speaking.
The one thing I want to point out too for this, as opposed to other like campaign legacy games, is that it also in each of those boxes shows you exactly what you're getting when you open them or when you add something to it. So
you can reset it.
You can reset it. So every time, like I just played this game with my partner, I just played it with David, it was very simple to reset as if nothing had happened and you wouldn't know any difference. So instead of a game where you're like destroying things or opening up things for the first time and now you can't unopen them, you can unopen them here. You can just start from zero again and do a new campaign with a new group of people and have even potentially multiple going on at once.
Now, one thing I want to say, not to put too much of a damper on this, because I think we both really enjoy what this game is doing. I definitely want to play a full campaign. I would theorize that it says 2 to 6 players.
1 to 6 players. You can play
one to 6 players, right. I think this is built starting in a solo game mentality.
Yeah.
I think 2 players, fantastic. This gives me My City vibes in that same respect. Obviously a totally different game, but when you walk away from the table, you're going to feel the same sort of happiness and fun that you got from a My City.
And I think the crossover is that you're building a city.
Yeah.
And then it's a lighter experience, but that you're experiencing together, where you're like evolving it, unlocking new things, seeing new things as the city evolves, you're evolving with the game. And I think that's what's similar in the experience, but it is different, right? Because it is cooperative. It's not competitive. And to your point, I think you were trying to make was that at higher player counts, I'm not sure how much it really has to offer beyond that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, first of all, I don't like playing a lot of high player count games unless it's a party game. This one, I feel if I pull a tile and I'm figuring out where to go, I can say, hey, Emily, what do you think? To say that to 5 other people at the table...
It's a lot of chefs in the kitchen.
It's a lot of chefs in the kitchen, and a lot of people are just going like, well, that's not even it's not the level of conversation for this game that requires 5 minds to figure out.
The one thing I will say, though, is there's not a reason you can't play it with 6. And I think at a family weight, I could definitely see it with, if I have a family of 6, right, we have a few adults and mainly kids around the table, you could definitely have 6 people together playing this game, happy to enjoy it.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
So I think it just depends on the audience you're trying to do. And again, to that effect, I think I could play with more than 6. I think I could play with as many as I want, really.
You could do that, that's for sure. But this is going to be the kind of game like My City that I play probably with Alicia, and we play through that whole sheet. Now, the other cool thing about this is you can play through that whole sheet, and then you could start all over again, not only because it's easy to reset, but because some of the decisions and paths that you take on that sheet are such that, let's take this other path and get this new thing out of the box that we never used. And I'm telling you, some of the stuff in the box, if we showed you all that on display, you'd be like, what? That's crazy. There's this and that.
Yes.
So it's a really interesting game. I'm going to do something I don't think you're prepared for. I'm going to give this, it's not a full review because we've only played it once. But I'm going to give it a score that might evolve over time after I play it. So we might revisit this. But I'm going to say I have to agree with the Spiel on this. I think for the Spiel, this is exactly the kind of game that's it's super simple to play.
Yeah.
But also very rewarding in terms of all the things that we were just talking about. So I think it's absolutely worthy of the nomination and probably worthy of the win, although I haven't played all of those games. I would give this game right now probably an 8. And with only room, I think, to go up. Because I think I haven't even experienced a lot of the extra stuff that I was just alluding to.
Yeah, having only played through it a few times and gone through the first few boxes, I would say I'm between a 7 and an 8.
Okay.
I don't like giving half scores, so I'm just going to say between
I don't want to give a 7.5, but it's right between 7 and 8. So you figure that out.
I'll let you guys make a decision there. But I do think it has room to grow, right? And I really think I'm excited to play. I've peeked a little bit at what's in the other boxes, right?
We peek.
But I'm excited to see what it'll actually feel like playing with them and how it like ratchets up over time and how over time you start to feel like, okay, I know what the strategy is that we're going for here. I know like our rhythm and how we're doing things.
Yeah, but long story short, if you enjoyed playing Dorfromantik, I can't imagine you not enjoying this. It is the same sort of chill experience where you're like just taking a tile and putting it down. It's not a big deal. But you can make it a big deal because you want to try to do well and figure things out. It is a unique gaming experience, whether you're playing this or the video game. So if you have any questions about this version of the game, please make them in the comments below. We'll get down there, answer whatever we can. Until next time, of course, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.